Taslim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is the fifth lecture, which is the second part of which is talking about the research proposal. As I said in lecture 4, I wanted to divide the points that we have in the proposal into 2 lectures, so it's going to be easier for me to handle them rather than having them in one lecture, one long lecture. So this is the second part in which I explain the main points in the research proposal. We talked about the in the first part, we talked about the abstract, introduction, and the literature review. Now we are going to talk about the significance of the research. Why your research is significant. What is it that you are going to accomplish here? So you explain the significance of your study, simply. This is what the significance of research is about. A study may include the meaning of the research work to you personally, and should include how your research benefits or impacts others in part or whole. So what is it that you are going to add to the field here? This is your contribution. This is where your contribution to knowledge. This is where your research places itself. After we said in the literature that it fills the gap, now it establishes a place in the literature that, well, my research here is significant because blah, 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 blah. So this is the significance of the research. This is your place in the literature. You discuss what people or groups of people might benefit from reading your research. How are these people, who are the target people, are going to benefit from my research? For example, you say that, well, I'm investigating the writing problems of the Saudi students in the secondary school in Riyadh or in Hassa. So these students, you have to show how they are going to benefit from research, from your research. Well, these students, for example, are going to benefit from my research in these points. You list the points, and you show this project significance to developing a body of knowledge. So this section, often referred to as the rationale, is crucial, it's important. Why? Because it is one place in which the researcher tries to convince an audience that research is worth doing and could persuade someone to support or fund a research project. Sometimes you think it is important, it is interesting to you, but other people, they don't know. You have to let them know about it. You need to show it clearly why it is important to you, and what is it that you are going to add to these people, and how are you going to benefit them. So you could also hear why your research is worth doing. You say, well, because I like it. No, this is not enough. Because it's nice, because it's fun, because I enjoy it. No, this is not giving anybody, this is not giving me or anybody who's going to read your research a convincing answer. You need to have something to convince your supervisor, or persuade him that this is worth doing. Yes. So if you are going to apply for a fund, for example, you want to get something from an institution to fund your proposal, you've got to convince them in the significance of the research, how they are going to benefit from it. After this part, after you establish the significance of the research, after you write about it, you've got also something which is really critical here, really important in your study. It is the problem here, your research question. Your research question is the most critical part of your research proposal. Why? It defines the proposal, simply. It guides your arguments and inquiry, and it provokes the interest of the reviewer. So your question is really important because the whole study is built on it. This is the argument. This is what you are trying to investigate. This is what you are trying to solve. This is the problem. What is the problem? You put it in the question. What are, for example, the obstacles for learning English in elementary schools in Al-Hassa? So this could be a question. So you try to formulate it later. It may not be a good question. You may try to, as we are going to see now, make yourself clear. You edit it many times in order to make sure that you have a sound question. If your question does not work well, no matter how strong the rest of the proposal is unlikely to be successful. So your question is really important. Why? Because your proposal is building on it, is actually standing on this question. If your question is not built well, is not formed properly, you are going to face problems and challenges. If you are not clear about it, we are going to see later on how to avoid writing poor questions. Because of this, it is common to spend more time on the researching, conceptualizing, and forming of each individual word of the research question than on any other part of the proposal. So every single word in the question should be written carefully. You should be careful, very, very careful when you write the words in the question. Sometimes when you make them longer, it means that you are going to include maybe lots of issues in the study. So you've got to be careful. Do my results answer my question or no? If you've got, for example, you collect data. We are not going to collect data here, but if you go and you collect data and you find that, well, my research is not answering the question that I have actually asked at the beginning of the project. So you've got to be realistic. You've got to review your question. You've got to go back, say, oh, well, I should have included this, but I can't, so I'll take this part. I should have taken this out. Well, okay, put this one instead and make it specific. Narrow it down. You need to narrow down your focus here and through your research question. The next part after the research question is the research methodology. How you are going to tackle this topic or this problem? How you are going to do it? This section must be well written and logically organized, because you are not actually doing the research. You are not here in the proposal doing the research. So it should be well written. It should convince me that you can do a study. In the proposal, this is a speculation. This is, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. If you just list things here and there, say, well, this is what I'm going to do, without being clear, and your writing is poor and it is not organized, I'm not going to be convinced that this is going to be a good study, because the proposal gives me a hint of what the study is going to be like. So as a consequence, the reader will never have a study outcome from which to evaluate whether your methodological choices were the correct ones. How can I make sure that they are correct if you are not telling me about your study? So you've got to be really careful in writing the research methodology part. The objective here is to ensure that the reader is convinced that your overall research design and methods of analysis will correctly address the research problem. What is the research problem? I need to know that the tool that I'm selecting matches the research question, is doable. I need to be realistic in this regard. So I need to see why I'm selecting this tool. is this tool the appropriate one? Is it the most appropriate or not? So these questions I've got to ask myself when doing this study or writing the proposal. So your design and method should be absolutely and unmistakably tied to the specific aims of your study. What are my aims? What is it that I'm going to do? This is how I'm going to get them, or how I'm going to accomplish my goals or achieve my aims. This is how I'm going to get them through this tool. And is this tool the appropriate one? Yes or no? You ask yourself. So the research method, some students, they asked us actually last semester, what is it that we are going to put in the research methodology, or what methods can we have, and what these methods mean? What do they mean? For example, you could have a questionnaire, you could have an interview, you could have an observation, survey, experiment. You've got to be realistic here. You can't just because, well, this is a research proposal, okay, yes, I can say what I want. I want to put them all, just to impress my readers. No, this is not true. You can't put the whole thing. Though you are not going to do the study, we can tell, well, this is not realistic. He is just trying to show up, or she is just trying to show up here. They want to put lots of things, and sometimes these things are not doable, are not appropriate. You cannot do, for example, a survey on a certain topic. You've got to have something else instead. So you've got to be careful. You may have one tool which is appropriate, and you may, with this one tool, you may get the results that you wanted to get. So the questionnaires and interviews, observations, surveys, experiments, any one of these methods, any one that you have chosen, please, when you choose any one of these, briefly describe how each method will be applied. For example, say questionnaires will be distributed to the teachers, to the students, to the administrators. Interviews will be conducted with X and Y, and what and where, and what is it that you are going to do. Well, for example, with the interview, I'm going to ask them about their performance. In the questionnaires, I'm going to ask them about their opinions about something. So you need to tell us exactly what is it that you are going to do with each method and how you are going to apply it. After you finish the research methodology, you have a part which is really important in doing research. It is the ethical consideration part. In this part, you tell the readers that you have made sure that you have not violated the rules of scientific research, because there are some rules that we have, and you've got to learn them. Number one, you should have permission, the permission of the people who you'll be studying to conduct research involving them. And these people, if they say no, okay, you stop your research. You shouldn't force them. You should take their permission. Well, do you want to participate in this study? Say, well, yes or no, because their participation is voluntary. It's not obligatory. If they want at any time to withdraw from the study, they say, well, I don't want to do this study. I don't want to be involved anymore in your study. I'm not interested. I'm busy. I'm doing. Don't force them. If they want, that's fine. If they do not want, do not please force them. So after taking their permission, you try to take their consent. And this consent have to be informed. They call it informed consents. You write a letter and then they sign it. You tell them, you update them. At this, wallahi, for example, I'm going to collect my data through questionnaires, observations, and, for example, surveys. At each tool, you've got to update the informed consent. Well, your participation is voluntary in the questionnaire. Do you want to participate in the interview? Or you can write the whole thing in the first letter, but try to make sure that you are not forcing them to participate in your study. You don't want to do anything that would cause physical or emotional harm to your subjects. This could be something as simple as being careful how you word sensitive or difficult questions during your interviews. So make sure that in the interview you do not harm your participants. Don't say something offensive. Try very carefully to spend a lot of time on editing your questions and rephrasing them and reformulating them, on making sure that they are actually giving the appropriate message that you want to send to your participants. Don't mislead them. If they don't understand, you need to repeat the question to them, and you need to clarify what is it that you mean by this and that. Be sure that your own personal biases and opinions do not get in the way of your research, and that you give both sides fair consideration. If you have an opinion, okay, that's fine, but don't let your opinions affect your participants or your results, because this will be biased. You need to avoid bias in research. If you have, this is about subjectivity and objectivity in research. And this is actually, this happens very frequently in the qualitative data. And this is something that you are going to take later on, inshallah. And so, if you have an opinion, don't let it spoil your data. Don't let it affect your participants or harm them. Your research also should be conducted under the assumption that you will keep your findings anonymous. These students, they don't want to be, if they don't want to be known, well, I don't want your name to be, your real name to be known to the participants, to the people, because I'm saying to you confidential information. Please, my researcher, I'm not here to disclose my secrets to you, and then you take them and you tell the whole world about my story. No, I'm here because I trust you that you are not going to do any harm to me, that you are going to use pseudonyms, what they call pseudonyms, which is not the real name of the participant. If his name is Muhammad, you say Ali. Abdullah Salih. You change the name so that people cannot identify who is it and where he comes from. He doesn't want to be identified. Your research has to be approved by an ethics review committee to make sure that you are not violating any of the above considerations. So you take the permission of the organization that you are going to be doing the research in. So you ask them, well, I'm going to do the research, but this is the letter. You read it. You have a look at my research. These are my aims, and then you let them know what is it that you are going to do. And if they are convinced, if they are happy, if they want to have you, they will say, okay, yes, go ahead. We like your study, and we want you to be doing research on our participants. So you take this permission from the place where you are going to do your study. The last point is, when reporting your results, be sure that you accurately represent what you observed or what you were told. Don't add anything. Don't invent things that did not happen. If things have happened, report them as they happened. If somebody has said something, please quote it directly. Quote it directly. and say this is his opinion and this is what I'm saying. Don't make them overlap. So your opinion and his opinion, and then we get lost in the middle. No, this is what happened. This is what I see. This is what I saw in the field. So I observed something, you write it down and put it as it is. So you've got to make sure that you are not reporting anything that did not happen in the field. And your participants have, as I said, so yeah, the main points that they have the right to withdraw, that you are not causing any harm to them, that you are keeping them anonymous, nobody knows about them, and other stuff that we have talked about. There is a section here about the limitations of the study, which is the characteristics of the design or methodology that impacted or influenced the application or interpretation of the results of your study. What is it that made you not to do this particular thing? There are things that maybe have put some restrictions on you, have actually made it difficult for you to do this. And by the way, all studies have limitations, so don't feel ashamed that you have, or don't feel embarrassed that, well, my study has a limitation. However, it is important that you restrict your discussion to limitations related to the research problem under investigation. If your study does not have a limitation, don't say, well, if that limitation is not relevant to your study, don't bring it. Bring the limitations that happened, or list the limitations that happened to you. And these the limitations could be methodological or about you, the researcher. Could be about the sample size. You wanted to get handed, and then only 10 students have turned up or have agreed to participate in your study. You have you haven't got sufficient data available for you. You have a lack, for example, of prior research. When you wanted to go and then research your topic, you discovered, wallah, that you have very few studies about your topic. And your measure to collect the data, for example, you say, oh, I wish I had that question. I did my study, but I did not put that question. I forgot to put it. I wish I had put that question in the study. So these are the limitations. You've got to acknowledge them. Also, for you as a researcher, access. You couldn't get access to the schools or to the organizations. It was difficult to collect the data in this particular school. Well, the headmaster said, no, we don't want you here. You go to other school, no, we don't want you. You list. For example, you said, well, at the beginning I want to go to 50 schools, and then you ended up with only 5. You say why this happened, and this is a limitation, that I could not have access from these institutions. Longitudinal effects also. Sometimes you want to do a large a big study, and you have very limited time. You can't do it in a longitudinal study. So this is something to acknowledge. This is a limitation. I couldn't get it done in the time that I have been given. Cultural and other biases that we talked about also in the part about the ethical consideration, that you should not be biased. So if you were biased, you should acknowledge that you have been you were biased, and you should tell the readers. You've got to make them aware of the bias that happened in your study. The section that comes after this one is the expected results, where you give a good indication of what you expect to get out of this research. It should join the data analysis and possible outcomes to the questions that you have raised. It will be a good place to summarize the significance of the work. So here, briefly, what is it that I'm going to get out of this research? And my question, my outcomes here, or my methods, I have answered the questions, I collected the data, and these are going to be my outcomes, or the results. These results have to match your questions, have to be relevant, have to be appropriate in terms of, well, I have not actually covered the whole thing here. I know, but you haven't been realistic when you made the question. You make it, well, your question could be answered by 4, for example, tools, and you used only 1. So you didn't have enough data, or sometimes you have lots of data, and the question could not answer these. More than 1 question need to be included. So it will be a good place to summarize the significance of the work here. So the people will say, okay, where are the results? Here, okay, so this is what he has got, or she has got. So this is where they can see, they can say that this is what we have got. The last thing is the references. This is the list of the works that you have cited in your research. This is the thing that you have taken your research from, some of it, especially in the literature review. I don't want to get into this one, into this point. I don't want to be giving you more information. So for more information, please see the guide. And please, we've got a link here. This link has the list of names of the students, males and females. And we've got the instructions, how to do the proposal, and the guide that we have. So these 2 things, the instructions, general instructions, and the guide, you need to read them before doing your research. And they have we have put the deadlines on them. And they will give you an idea about how to do the reference list, in-text citation, and the reference list at the end of your document. This is the end of this lecture, and I wish you the best of luck. Inshallah, we'll talk about upcoming issues later on the other issues. We'll cover them, inshallah, later on in lecture 7. Thanks for listening, and I wish you the best of luck.